Now call Alex Rowley for 7 minutes, please.
Presiding Officer, in opening for Labour today, I want to acknowledge the ongoing cooperation with the Government in addressing the COVID crisis. And I thank the Cabinet Secretary for the inclusive approach he has taken to this and other legislation being brought forward in this Parliament. We will support this bill today at stage 1. I believe the public expect all of us in this chamber to work together in the best interests of our country during this crisis and in the best interests of the people, and that is the right thing to do. Can I also say that as we move through this uncertain period, there may well be a need for further legislation, and where that is the case, we will continue to work with the Government to make it happen. Yesterday, the Deputy First Minister confirmed that the Cabinet Secretary for Economy, Fair Work and Culture is working with employers and trade unions to put in place guidance and a framework for safe working. While we need to see the outcomes from that work, I also believe we need to see a massive expansion of health and safety reps into workplaces across the country, and if that or any other aspect of safe working and a safe working framework needs to be put into law, then we will be willing to do so and do so at pace. I was very disappointed on Sunday as I read the change of message from the UK Government and the even more confused national address from the Prime Minister on Sunday evening. So it is important that we do all we can to avoid confusing messages, but it is difficult when the Westminster Government breaks rank and goes off in a separate direction. As such, I do think it's important that this Parliament makes clear that we are at one with the Government of Scotland when it comes to how we move forward, stay at home, protect the NHS and save lives. And it will also be important that we make sure that as we move forward with supporting workers to get back to work, there are clear rules and guidance in place and all health and safety laws apply. This is why I am asking the Government to explore further the role of health and safety reps in workplaces, and I hope the Cabinet Secretary will take that on board. This year, the theme for International Workers' Memorial Day on the 28th April was fittingly coronavirus, and the TUC reminded us of the importance of health and safety in the workplace, where they said we could not have a starker reminder of the important role of trade union health and safety reps in saving and protecting workers' lives than the current crisis that we are living through. So, as I say, I am asking the Cabinet Secretary to take this issue on board and look at a massive expansion of health and safety representatives across our country. Given the speed of legislation, it is also vital to pick up concerns and issues that have been flagged up to us. And in fairness to the Cabinet Secretary, many of the measures in this bill before us today have been flagged up by individuals and organisations. CELTA Scotland have welcomed the changes being brought in by this bill, which will allow students to terminate their current student accommodation tenancy by giving 7 days' notice. CELTA Scotland say student accommodation providers must provide maximum flexibility in these unprecedented times, and these proposed changes will ensure protection for all students who cannot remain in their student residential accommodation during the coronavirus pandemic. The Law Society of Scotland state that compliance with European Convention of Human Rights means that legislative change must be lawful, necessary, proportionate, time-limited and non-discriminatory. They go on to say that they welcome the respect for human rights in the policy memorandum, and in highlighting some particular features, they make clear that close post-legislative scrutiny of how the Act works in practice will be crucial. I agree with that. But I would want to put on record, Presiding Officer, our thanks to the Law Society for the support and advice, impartial advice they provide all year round, but in particular at this time where there is less time to scrutinise sometimes difficult and complex legislation. I do accept, Presiding Officer, that in this crisis lessons will need to be learned as we make progress. So the lesson, for example, from this week in terms of the hotel in Edinburgh and the night conference must be that no one can come into Scotland through our airports unless they are tested and quarantined for 14 days. So we will learn, and we need to learn where mistakes are made. And that does highlight why the Scottish Government have been right to insist on all nations of the UK working together, and why the UK Government must learn the lessons of this week and think before they act, and only do so in partnership with all nations and administrations of the United Kingdom. In conclusion, I want to make clear that in this crisis it is right that opposition members, indeed I would argue all members in this chamber, have a duty to hold the government to account where there are weaknesses, where there are gaps and where things must move at a faster pace. This is not simply to criticise, but to make sure we get a difficult situation right with party politics put to one side. That said, we must also recognise the enormity of the challenges and support ministers as they face up to those challenges. I asked a question of the Government 4 weeks ago that, in light of Scotland's established life science sector, for what reason it's not making greater use of the expertise in our universities and research institute labs throughout the country to increase the testing capacity of COVID-19. We are not using all the capacity in our Scottish labs to test. We have not got testing and tracking anywhere near the levels that it should be at. And that is my final point, Presiding Officer. The measures in this bill are just part of a widespread approach, and we need every bit of that approach to be working. We all have a duty to work together to make that happen. Thank you.